Welcome to Tales of Time, the channel where we bring history's most powerful moments to life. From forgotten empires to ruthless commanders, we uncover the real stories, the real strategies, and the decisions that changed everything. If you're into shocking twists, battlefield genius, and empires that rose and fell overnight, you're in the right place. Today, we're counting down the top 10 greatest military tacticians in history, and by the end, you might never look at war the same way again. Number 10. Sun Tzu, the general who won wars by avoiding them. More philosopher than fighter, Sun Tzu lived in the 5th century BC China during an era of non-stop warfare between rival states. But unlike other commanders, he didn't just train soldiers, he trained minds. His playbook, psychology, deception, precision. He taught that real victory happens before the battle begins. Appear weak when you are strong. Strike where the enemy is unprepared. And here's the twist. He once turned court concubines into disciplined soldiers just to prove that poor performance is the commander's fault, not the troops. His methods shocked the king. And worked. Though we don't have records of his battles, the art of war has shaped generals from Napoleon to General MacArthur, and even modern business, sports, and politics. But the next man on our list didn't just theorize strategy. He lived it on the battlefield, undefeated and conquering the known world before his 33rd birthday. Number 9. Alexander the Great. At just 20 years old, he inherited the throne of Macedon. Within a decade, he would conquer territory stretching from Greece to India without ever losing a single battle. His genius wasn't just brute force, it was movement, momentum, and psychology. At the Battle of Gaugamela, he faced a Persian army that outnumbered him 5-1. He didn't flinch. He used a bold flanking maneuver, drawing the enemy out of position, then pierced straight through their center to Darius himself. The Persian army collapsed in panic. But here's the twist. Alexander didn't just fight to win. He studied local customs, wore local clothes, and absorbed conquered cultures into his empire. That's what made his rule last. Even after his death, cities like Alexandria kept spreading his influence for centuries. He was a commander, a diplomat, and a master of battlefield timing. And he did it all before the age of 33. But the next tactician on our list wouldn't just face a superpower. He'd nearly destroy the greatest one of his time from the back of a war elephant. Number 8. Hannibal Barca. He was Carthage's answer to Roman dominance. And in the Second Punic War, he pulled off one of the most legendary military campaigns in history. To reach Rome, he led an army of 50,000 men and war elephants across the Alps in winter. Most thought it was impossible. He did it anyway. And once he arrived, he didn't just fight Rome, he humiliated them. At the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal used a double envelopment tactic so precise, he surrounded a Roman army twice his size and annihilated them. It's still studied in military academies today. But here's the twist. Hannibal didn't lose a single major battle on Italian soil for over a decade. Rome was terrified. But instead of reinforcing him, Carthage hesitated. That hesitation gave Rome time to adapt, and Hannibal was eventually forced to return home. Still, his brilliance forever changed Roman military thinking. In many ways, Hannibal helped shape the empire that eventually defeated him. But the next tactician didn't just challenge empires, he built the largest one the world has ever seen and did it faster than anyone in history. Number 7. Genghis Khan. He started as a hunted outcast on the Mongolian steppe. By the end of his life, he commanded the largest contiguous empire the world has ever seen. Genghis didn't rely on numbers. He relied on speed, strategy, and shock. His armies could ride 100 miles a day, hit hard and vanish before the enemy even reacted. He used feigned retreats to lure enemies into ambushes, psychological warfare to break their will, and intelligence networks to strike exactly where his enemies were weakest. At the Battle of Kalka River, his forces pretended to flee for days, drawing their enemies into a trap that ended in total slaughter. And here's the twist. Genghis didn't just conquer cities, he restructured societies. He promoted people based on merit, used written laws, and even supported religious freedom. He turned Mongol tribes into a military machine that could coordinate across continents without modern tech. Europe feared him. China fell to him. The Middle East still remembers him. But the next commander didn't lead millions. He didn't rule an empire. He just never lost, not even once. Number 6. Khalid ibn al-Walid. He wasn't born into power. But on the battlefield, he earned a name feared across 2 continents, the Sword of Allah. Khalid led the early Muslim armies during the 7th century and racked up over 100 victories without a single defeat. His tactics were fast, flexible, and brutal. He mastered desert warfare, using speed and misdirection to overwhelm armies far larger than his own. At the Battle of Mu'tah, he held off a Byzantine force nearly 10 times the size of his own army, then led a flawless retreat that saved thousands. He didn't just win battles, he toppled empires. In just a few years, he crushed both the Byzantine and Sassanid superpowers, something Rome never managed. He was so effective that even after being dismissed by the Caliph for being too popular, soldiers still followed the strategies he left behind. Victory followed him, even when he wasn't there to lead. But the next tactician on our list wasn't feared for unpredictability. He was feared because he learned from the best, and then used those lessons to defeat his teacher's empire. Number 5. Scipio Africanus. Rome had been humiliated by Hannibal. Its legions shattered, its pride wounded, but Scipio was the man who would turn the tide. He studied Hannibal's tactics obsessively. Then, at the Battle of Zama, he flipped them. When Hannibal charged with his war elephants, Scipio opened gaps in his lines, let them pass through harmlessly, then counterattacked. Rome won. Carthage was broken, and Hannibal, the master tactician, was finally outmaneuvered. Scipio wasn't just a battlefield genius. He rebuilt Roman morale, reformed training, and rallied allies across the Mediterranean. He fought not just with strategy, but with diplomacy, leadership, and timing. His victory at Zama didn't just end a war, it secured Rome's path to empire. But the next leader didn't need politics or negotiation. He let his tactics speak for themselves, launching invasions across thousands of miles with perfect coordination. Number 4. Subutai. While Genghis Khan was the face of Mongol conquest, Subutai was the mind behind its most brilliant campaigns. He wasn't a king or a noble, just a blacksmith's son who became one of the greatest military strategists the world has ever seen. Subutai commanded armies across Asia and Europe, often coordinating multiple invasions over thousands of miles at the same time. His timing was flawless. In the 1241 invasion of Europe, Mongol forces attacked Poland and Hungary in perfect sync, crushing both and throwing Europe into chaos. Subutai often fought with incomplete information, limited supplies, and no radios, and yet his armies struck like clockwork. He used scouts, deception, and speed to create an illusion of invincibility. While European knights relied on brute strength, Subutai used traps, misdirection, and strategic withdrawals. Entire kingdoms fell before they even understood what hit them. But the next tactician didn't rule from horseback. He learned in the jungles, fought against empires, and defeated 2 of the greatest military powers of the 20th century. Number 3. Vo Nguyen Giap. He wasn't trained in a military academy. He studied law, history, and guerrilla warfare, then used it to outsmart global superpowers. Giap led Vietnamese forces against both France and the United States, winning battles everyone thought were impossible. At Dien Bien Phu, he surrounded and crushed a heavily fortified French base deep in the jungle, ending colonial rule in Indochina. His troops carried artillery through mountains by hand. His enemies never saw it coming. He didn't just fight with guns, he fought with patience, propaganda, and timing. During the Vietnam War, Giap launched the Tet Offensive, shocking the US and turning American public opinion against the war. Without winning a single decisive battle, he proved that victory isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about endurance and strategy stretched over years. But the next man on this list earned respect not through resistance, but through lightning-fast offense, surgical strikes, and battlefield brilliance that even his enemies admired. Number 2. Erwin Rommel. To his soldiers, he was a hero. To his enemies, he was the Desert Fox, a tactician so skilled even Allied generals studied his moves in real time. Rommel earned his reputation in North Africa during World War II, where he led smaller German forces against larger British and Allied armies. He didn't wait. He struck fast, flanked harder, and used the desert like a weapon. His supply lines were thin, his forces often outgunned, but Rommel made it look easy. At battles like Gazala and Tobruk, he outmaneuvered entire divisions with speed, deception, and masterful use of tanks. Rommel wasn't just a tactician. He was a reluctant Nazi, openly defying Hitler's orders and later becoming involved in a plot to overthrow him. That choice cost him his life. Rommel's legacy isn't just about battlefield genius. It's about honor in war and strategy that transcended ideology. But the final leader on this list didn't just win battles or shock the world. He rewrote the rules of warfare forever, and the entire world is still living with the consequences. Number 1. Napoleon Bonaparte. He rose from a young artillery officer to the Emperor of France, not because of birthright, but because of sheer tactical brilliance. Napoleon revolutionized warfare in Europe. He used speed, surprise, and coordination like no one before him. He split enemy forces, exploited weak flanks, and moved armies faster than anyone thought possible. At Austerlitz, he faced a combined Russian and Austrian force. He pretended to be weak, baited them in, then crushed them with a perfectly timed counterattack. Napoleon didn't just win, he reshaped Europe. His victories forced nations to rethink military doctrine. His defeats, even they rewrote borders and redrew empires. He created the core system, modernized logistics, and trained soldiers to act independently, concepts still used in armies today. And though he ultimately fell at Waterloo, his influence never did. From battlefield strategy to civil law, Napoleon's legacy wasn't just military, it was global. And that's why he stands at the top of this list, the most brilliant military tactician of all time. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell us, who do you think we missed? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our next video, because history's greatest minds are just getting started.